All right, this is I'm Dr. Jesse Roberts. This is Join or Die. It's August 29th, 2024. It is Thursday. My computer's updating something. And we have this disturbing video footage released by Steven Crowder, the prominent conservative podcaster and content creator guy on, I guess he's not mainly on Rumble, stuff like that now, but he's an undercover journalist team who had they caught a UN official on a hidden camera saying the quiet part out loud. Here you go. You can take a look for yourself. It's about an 8-minute video. So
is globalism one of the goals for the UN?
Absolutely. It's a threat to the absolute power of the United States.
One of the defining features of this MAGA movement is the ultranationalism. And one of the main enemies are what they call the globalists, and the definition of a globalist.
One of the objectives of the UN is to create an identity of a global citizen.
They create this institution, which is the closest we've ever got to kind of like a world government.
You know, the United Nations does not have its own army. Absolutely.
I'm not sure the United Nations as an institution is going to survive a second term by Donald Trump. The United States government funds 27% of the UN budget.
Is that more than anyone else?
By a long stretch.
A United Nations without the action of the United States backing it up, it's not going to be effective.
The purpose of Donald Trump is...
Okay, so far, I just wanted to interject here periodically, and you can see this person who is a legal counselor of some kind for the UN. He's saying that the goal of the UN is to create the international citizen, and you have it here where he's also saying that the United States is the biggest funder of the UN. On top of that, basically Donald Trump's the biggest threat to the UN because Donald Trump does not have the globalist view for the United States quite like certain other political leaders do. What is happening? All right, here I'll continue showing you this clip. Sorry, my phone just went off.
To end the international institutions that somehow level the playing field. It's a movement that is deeply nationalistic. It's America first, America, make America great again, America, America, America. He wants America first.
So does the UN not want him? Yeah, because I remember her.
We are terrified. They're terrified.
So the internal vibe of the UN is like no one wants Trump because of that?
Absolutely nobody wants Trump.
So is the UN just like useless now?
I would say for 95% of issues related to international peace and security, yes.
Okay, so that said, what was that last line he said?
Related to
He
international
said, okay,
peace.
the UN
I
is
would say
just
for
worthless now, is that what it says?
Absolutely nobody wants Trump.
So is the UN just
So
like
is this
useless
doing
now?
just
I would say for
useless now? I would say for 95% of issues related to peace and security, yes. Okay, then what's the point of the UN? What does a global citizen look like? So I can assure you what they would like to see in a global citizen is similar to something they tried to employ during the pandemic, where they wanted to lock us all down. And also in that same light, they also are, look at what they're doing in the UK, going after anybody who has a dissenting opinion about what they're doing there. And they're trying to shut down X because of hate speech laws. It sure seems like the direction that they want to move in, if it's not about peace and security, it's only about one thing. It's about power. What else would it be? Commerce? No. One thing and one thing only.
I work more with the legal counsel, which is the lawyer of the United Nations.
One of the defining features of this MAGA movement is the ultra-nationalism.
International.
No,
And it's just like right now,
ultra-nationalism.
like the market is worse than
It's a movement that is deeply nationalistic. It's America first, America, make America great again, America, America. We hate immigrants, we hate everybody that
more competition.
is not us, doesn't think like us, doesn't look like us, right? That's a very central element.
I'm glad we've been bowling. That was fun.
And one of the main enemies are what they call the globalists. And the definition of a globalist. I'm not sure the United Nations as an institution is going to survive a second term by Donald Trump.
Wait, say that again? Oh, I don't want to come.
I'm not sure the UN is going to survive a second term of Donald Trump.
Why do you say that? There's nothing wrong. Like, I don't.
Because the
It's interesting.
purpose of Donald Trump is to end the international institutions that somehow level the playing field.
Yeah,
He wants America first.
Oh no, we're doing America first.
Yeah, because I remember her
I mean, we are terrified. We're terrified. They create this institution, which is the closest we've ever got to kind of like a world government.
the world government.
A world state.
Like a one world government.
Exactly.
So is globalism one of the goals for the UN?
Absolutely. It's to create a space for also the creation of a consciousness of a species, of a planet, of an identity as a planet. One of the objectives of the UN is to create an identity of a global citizen.
Of a global citizen?
Yes. Of someone who shares an identity, a political identity with everybody on this planet.
Is that known though that the UN wants, that that's one of the goals of the UN?
Yes. Yes. And I get it. That is annoying for people that are ultra-nationalists. But it's a threat to the absolute power of the United States.
Why?
Because they don't want an institution over the U.S. telling the U.S. what to do. The United States pays 27% of the total budget of the United Nations. For example, say that the United Nations creates an environmental agency, and that environmental agency says that countries can only reach a certain level of pollution.
So like I said, it's about power. It's about
How
control.
do you think all these crazy MAGA people are going to react to that? Who are you, globalists, to tell me, the United States, what I can do?
So is the UN just like useless now?
I would say for 95% of issues related to international peace and security, yes.
95%
Yes.
related to international
It's not
matters?
international peace and security.
International peace and security.
Yes, which is the main goal of this institution.
So it's 95% useless for that.
It's 95% useless.
There are many instances of human rights in which skillful lawyers can take cases in case Trump decides to go completely wrong. One instance is the United Nations. But another instance that I think would work even better is the Organization of American States. It's a regional international organization. Its member states are only in the Americas. So they generally deal with regional matters. The thing is, they have a very good human rights tribunal system. And the United States is part of that human rights system. So you can bring cases against the United States to that system. That is one way to go.
So the political appointees don't do work?
Oh no, oh no.
Like who?
Like, I mean, there is this international law commission when you have people appointed by governments of the whole world. have people from Latin America, you have the US guy, well, the Russian guy lost the chair because of the whole Ukrainian drama. They have a bunch of people who are supposed to be great international lawyers, and they're going to make a great job codifying the law of the world. And they just take the money and they don't do anything. The United States government funds 27% of the UN budget.
27%?
Yeah.
Is that more than anyone else?
Oh, by a long stretch.
There is very little power that the United Nations has that is not actually the power of its member states.
It's almost like it was set up that way.
The action of the United States backing it up, it's not going to be effective. You know, the United Nations does not have its own army.
Should it?
Absolutely. Because as every good lawyer knows, whenever politics get involved, the law disappears. Completely disappears.
When politics get involved, the law disappears?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How often does that happen?
All the time.
Like what?
And that is something we have to, when Putin decides to invade Ukraine,
What
in
law?
violation of the UN Charter.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Article 2,
Yeah.
the use of force is prohibited in international relations. That's the law. It's clear, crystal clear.
So there you have it. This should be a surprise to nobody, but that's just the reality of the world we live in now, where people like this, my glasses are falling off my face. This UN person is saying that the biggest impediment to a global government is the United States of America. And it's not the United States federal government that's the impediment. It is the states themselves. The system that the United States uses to have checks and balances, doing states' rights versus federal rights solely, like versus an overall federal government, is the biggest impediment to what they want to do. And he said if Trump gets elected, they'll do what they can to check him through, legal means, essentially. He's the biggest threat there that is to their overarching plans. And this should be surprising to nobody, but it's just crazy to hear it out loud like that. And there's just no way of getting around it, where the reason why this idea of patriotism in the United States is such a threat is because of that exact reason. And whether you see it or not on the surface, there's something going on behind the scenes where influences outside the United States are having a impact in the United States and also globally, to this point where it's becoming a they can infiltrate through several ways, not just blatantly in your politics. They could do things like on a local level. You got things going on with like what Soros is doing. They have the ability to manipulate media. They have the ability to manipulate history, for that matter, the narrative. They can do all these things, and you see what's happening with the open borders issues in a lot of these countries. This is a great way to break up any sort of nationalist sentiment you may have in your country, and you see that with what's going on in like some of these countries in Europe. You share a picture of your country's flag, and in regards, let's say you respond that way, it could land you in front of a judge. And this guy here, who knows what how much authority someone like this has, but they're just saying the part that we all knew was the case, that the United Nations needs the United States to exist, just like NATO does and everything else. They need the funding, and they need the power, but they also need the United States to go away in its current form. And that the biggest threat to that is the states themselves. And it's a crazy coincidence that the people that founded this country use the states as a way to protect us from the federal government, but also, you know, inadvertently it protects you from that globalist type thing. People, like he says, the people in the United States, they're not just going to stand there and take it. They're just going to stand there and tell you, okay, I'll do what you say. No, they're going to fight back. Well, good. I'm glad that's how they feel about the United States of America, because that's what needs to happen. And what do you think is going to happen when you have very weak leaders in power? Let's say Kamala Harris gets elected. You think she's going to put her foot down to someone like this, to the UN? No, Joe Biden didn't. Joe Biden wouldn't. Joe Biden went right back. Trump blatantly just cut us out of a lot of this international stuff. And you know, Trump has pushed back against NATO. He's pushed back against the UN. He's pushed back against global governance. That's why he's the threat. And Joe Biden gets elected, goes right back to it. Obama was with it. Basically, since World War II, that's been the movement, right? Even before World War II. Look back to Woodrow Wilson. World War I was a great opportunity for him to hit the reset button on the world and build it up in the image he wanted. He wanted this, basically like a global democracy type system that was run by an elite class of educated people who were, another arm of the government, which is what you have today with your three-letter agencies. This is like a big part of the progressive era, and Wilson saw that, and he aspired to have that globally, and that's why when it came to the negotiating table at the end of World War I, it was his big bright-eyed plans that became the impetus for how things were worked out. And ultimately, the U.S. didn't ratify the League of Nations, but UN is basically the successor to that. And hearing this guy talk like this is very concerning. What makes you think that somebody on a global scale, like some major thing like the UN, wouldn't do what it could to interfere when they see him as the biggest? You have the media telling people in the United States Trump's the biggest existential threat to the country. You have people in the in politics saying the same thing. You got people in our military saying the same thing. You got people in big business saying the same thing. You got the globalists saying the same. Like, if this one person, if it's literally the world against this one person, what makes you think that they can't just do whatever they want eventually? Do you know why they don't just do what they want? Because of you. Because you are the biggest impediment to them doing whatever they feel like. Because they fear overall backlash, right? But if they knew the people would just abide by their rules, which they've had a nice big test to see how that would work, they would just be able to do whatever they wanted. And it's just concerning. We're at this point in our history, in world history. And a couple days ago, I did an episode, a podcast here, and I said, what is it about this era, this generation of people that wants to be essentially more authoritarian? What is it? What is it about this time period that got people to this point that makes them want to be that way? And it's true. I mean, they're there. This generation of like this guy, they're striving for something like that. What do they want out of this? What do they want out of this? If it's not about peace and it's not about security, what's it about? Is it about trade? No, because it's not about that. Is it about money? Maybe, but they've done a good job of degrading all value in our currencies worldwide. So what's left is, basically just power. You saw this with, trying to hand over the way that we handle health emergencies in the United States to a global arm of the world government, basically. So yeah, you should show this video to everybody you know, because it's very important that they see this. this should be far more viral than it even is. And I know it's got a couple million impressions on X, but this should be everywhere. So share it. I'm going to sign off here, but I just wanted to share that with you, and you will go out and spread this to the world. Thank you. Have a great Thursday afternoon.